Trevor.
Thanks, Adam. I think this is without doubt one of the most important questions as far as the reconstruction and the turnaround of Zimbabwe is concerned. The issue of skills, where are those skills sitting? Is it possible to get those skills back into Zimbabwe? And it's a matter that affects, as the Prime Minister has just conceded, it affects government capacity, it affects the private sector, it affects NGOs and so forth. There simply isn't the depth of skill in Zimbabwe. The banking sector, the insurance industry and so forth is suffering. As a result, quality of product, quality of service, and that kind of stuff is lower than it's ever been in Zimbabwe. Now the question is, which I suppose is the question that we're looking at, is what forced people to leave? And if we identify the reasons why people left, the next question is, have those issues been addressed to such an extent that people feel confident to come back? And the issues that forced people to leave the country were issues that John has highlighted: education for their kids, good quality education for their kids, security, political stability, small things that would look small under normal circumstances, ability to purchase a house, to purchase that kind of stuff, to advance yourself as a person. But primarily, the biggest force that made people leave the country was the political question, the instability, the persecution, the deterioration in human rights, and that kind of stuff. Then we ask ourselves the question, have those issues been attended to such an extent that people feel that if I go back, there might be a reversal and I'm going to be trapped, okay? And let's also bear in mind that these are people that have been away from Zim for, if we take the duration of the crisis, for a minimum of 10 years. These are people that have set up home, set up businesses, have kids that have been born outside the country at 10 years. Some of them are already going to school. Some of them that left young are either at universities or have found new schools. And the decision, therefore, is the country in such a state that I feel secure as a businessman, as a family person, to be able to uproot my kids and indeed relocate my business back to Zimbabwe? And that's a very tough question. I tell you, if those of you who've been around this hotel, you find I've made an estimation, and that estimation is that in every hotel or restaurant situation, 75% of the waiters are from Zimbabwe. And because they know me, the majority of them come to me and say, Chief, can we be going back to Zimbabwe right now? They ask me the question, but they know the answer. I turn back and say, but what do you think? And their answer is, we don't think things are stable yet for us to go back. I say, what's your concern? But won't things change? That's a big issue. Things have changed, yes, but the question is, will there be a reversal that's going to make people find that they've been trapped and they want to go back? A lot of people don't have confidence that what has been started right now is sustainable, that there won't be developments around the corner that are going to reverse the situation so that they're back to square one, having to deal with the same issues that they've had to, that caused them to leave the country. And these are, I've found that talking to people, and like John, I receive now on average about 3 emails a week from Zimbabweans, either some saying to me, Trevor, I am going back, what do you think? Others saying, I'm thinking of going back, what do you think? Can I have lunch, can I discuss with you? My own advice to people is, you've got to make a decision that's informed by one thing. Where you are at the present moment, do you feel secure enough in South Africa? Do you feel secure enough in the UK that you can make a life for yourself and for your children for the next 10 or so years? Or do you think you feel uncomfortable and you think home is where you should be? These are the issues that really should make you decide. And when you're having that kind of conversation, people immediately say, I hear what you're saying, and I think maybe this is not the right time to go. Let me wait for the situation to change. So the onus, it's a very personal decision that people have to make, but the onus rather the big obligation for influencing people to make that decision is going to be from the politicians, in terms of, has the situation changed? Is there the stability that underpins a decision of that nature for people to go home? And then there are the very complicating issue of citizenship. Some people have had their kids born in countries where you are a Zimbabwean, but your daughter is now South African. You are a Zimbabwean, but your daughter is now American, and that kind of stuff. And people do think of all those things. How do I deal with these issues? And I think at a political level, the issue of looking favorably to a situation where dual citizenship is something that is looked upon favorably, rather than seeing as, if you have dual citizenship, it means your intentions are ill as far as the country is concerned. And I think there's got to be, in my view, a concerted drive on the part of the Zimbabwean government, on the part of organizations such as the UNDP and UNESCO, to reach out to Zimbabweans in the diaspora and put across a case that is convincing enough in terms of informing them about the changes that are taking place, and beyond that, in terms of putting in place measures that help people to relocate and give them an option to leave the country should the situation require, in terms of this economic situation deteriorating. Because it's a difficult situation for a decision, rather, for a family to be making without any backup, without any fallback position. But I think, to a very large extent, to conclude my remarks right now, there's been lots of changes in Zimbabwe. The situation is different from where we were 9 months, 2 years ago, but not everybody is convinced that this change is sustainable, and therein lies the big question: is how do we get the people from the diaspora back into the country?
Thank you. I mean, what I'd like to pick up on, two of you mentioned getting these emails and these questions. Maybe I'll stick with you, Trevor. I mean, were you getting these questions 2 years ago, 3 years ago? I mean, is the fact that people are asking questions something new?
It's new. I think for me, it came out, I started receiving this around after the GPA, when there's a sense, things have changed. But I think the other truth that must be told is that it's not easy being away from home. And the GPA raised the hope in a number of people's hearts to say, maybe I can begin to go home. But the hope has to be balanced with the reality on the ground, whether if you go home, will you continue to enjoy the standard of living, the peace and the security and the stability that you've enjoyed? So these emails are a new phenomenon. And let me say that, we've just started a new daily newspaper in Zimbabwe, Newsday. We've been able to attract people from the diaspora. I'm having applications from people in the diaspora. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I'm receiving applications via Twitter and Facebook for people wanting to get jobs back in Zimbabwe. But again, the issue is there's a lot of hesitance. And to some extent, there's a mismatch between the salaries that you're able to offer at home and the salaries that people are able to offer right now. And right now, given the economic performance in Zimbabwe, very few companies can offer the kind of salaries that are being offered, for instance, in South Africa or elsewhere in the world.
Okay, thank you very much. One very broad question that I know we always wrestled with when I was writing about the situation in South Africa with Zimbabweans here is that just knowing how many Zimbabweans there are abroad is difficult. The number mentioned this morning in South Africa was 3 million. I find that to be fairly high, but if we were to add up Zimbabweans around the world, in Botswana and in other parts of Africa, in Europe and in Australia and so on, we would be looking at millions of Zimbabweans abroad. Is that about right?
I think so. I think the number of Zimbabweans in South Africa, that number has been overstated. But I think there's some form of research that has been done that puts that number around 2 million, not 3 million, not 4 million.
Yeah.
I think between 1.5 and 2 million is reasonably, that seems to be the right figure of Zimbabweans that are here.
Okay. Well